Welcome to the Women in Publishing Summit. We are back with another amazing panel of just incredibly talented women, and I am so pleased to bring you this topic. It's one that I struggle with all the time, and that is organizational skills. We will be talking not only about keeping organized as a writer, but also about writing tools, which can often help you keep your writing organized as you're trying to figure out, how to, we've talked about Scrivener in the past as an example, how to outline your book, how to keep it all going and flowing in a way that is not unmanageable, or God forbid you lose like 7 chapters because you can't remember where you saved them on your computer and all those types of things. So who knows where this conversation is going to go. I'm being real open and honest about that right now. I know we're going to talk about organizing. I know we're going to talk about writing tools and whatever else these women want to bring you to help you in your writing journey. Oh, thank you so much for being with me today. We have Darla DeMauro. We have Mohana Rajakumar and Sarah St. John. Thanks, ladies, for being here. I'm going to ask each of you to introduce yourselves briefly and tell us a little bit about why you're here and why this is your topic of choice. Darla, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me on. So I am a certified professional organizer in real life. I am one of those people that you might see on TV changing a room around, but also I help people with information and business goals as well. And so with my 3 published books and my 14-year career as a professional organizer and a blogger nearly that entire time, I am here to talk about organizing. And one of my books is Organizing Your Home with Sort and Succeed. And a lot of things in that 5-step process are things that I use to actually get my books written and published. And I'm excited to hear what all the other panelists have to say today.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mohana, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. First of all, hats off to Alexa for organizing this. This is absolutely amazing, and I think it's wonderful that so many people have access to these tools. I'm primarily a novelist, and I started maybe 15 years ago. And I wish that I had been able to go to a panel like this to really kind of give me some big picture things about what to do to keep things organized. Because now I think I've written over 10 books. I'm also an academic. I have a PhD in English literature. And I think definitely keeping on top of your material is like goal number 1, especially when you're starting out on a project.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Sarah. Welcome.
Hey. So I just got kind of started in this process. I actually found out about you through the Sparkle Hustle Grow box. Your book was in there, the Just Write It. And I had been thinking about writing a book up to that point, but that book kind of pushed me in that direction. And because I had ideas in me, but just hadn't started the process. But so I'm currently working on my first book, and it's called Frugalpreneur: How to Launch, Manage, and Market Your Business, Your Online Business. Sorry, I'm already forgetting. Your online business for under $100 a month. Because I've had several businesses. I've started several businesses throughout my lifetime, but I've always been on a tight budget. So I'm always looking for tools and resources to manage a business on tight budget. So I thought that would be a good thing to write about so that other people don't have to waste time themselves looking for those things. And I'm also planning to launch a podcast as well on that topic. So the book should be coming out April 30th is the plan.
Great. Right after this. So that's wonderful. So as you can see, we have 3 different women writing from very different perspectives and backgrounds, which is cool. We've got the nonfiction side covered. We've got the entrepreneur side covered. We have the fiction side covered. We have the experienced, lots of books, mid-level, and brand new writer here. So this is great. I love doing panels that are mixed up like this because I think sometimes when we have 15 books under our belt, we forget what it was like to be in that position of starting out, or we remember really well. We're ready to hand off the advice.
Horrors. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So it's really great. I'm excited to get all of your different perspectives. And the other thing is, I'm sure there are new tools that have come available that that Sarah might be finding that those of us who are comfortable with our older tools don't know about, or we'll see. I guess we'll see when this conversation gets going. So first, I want to start on the basic level of organizing. And I would just love for each of you to give your perspectives on how to organize your content as you are preparing to write your book. And obviously it's probably going to be different based on genre and nonfiction, fiction. But where do you get started, and how do you set out planning your book?
I'll jump in if that's all right. I think there's a couple of different ways that you can come at this. I had been writing a blog for, let's say 12 years at this point. And when I started writing my my first book was all brand new material. It was The Pregnant Entrepreneur. It was about an experience that I was going through at that time. And it's a book to help other people go through that same experience. But I didn't have a well of written material to choose from. I was writing it from scratch. So that's one kind of experience. At this point, I'm writing in my industry. So I'm writing about organizing. I'm writing for people who want to get help getting organized. And I have written on that topic for, like I said, about 12 years. So I have over 800 articles on my blog on all sorts of different topics. So in order to start getting writing the last book and the next book, at this point, I'm actually mining that material. And I'm not the first person in the world to have said, if you're writing a blog, you probably have a book sitting there, maybe don't even realize it. So I asked my assistant. I do have somebody that, she's great. I love my assistant. And one of the things that she does to get me started on the book writing process when we start each time is she'll go and mine the blog and just pull out all the articles. We don't worry about the pictures, but we just pull out all the articles, throw them together, and she hands me the digital file. And from that, I can then start to see the themes that I'm writing about over the past few years and start to put that into an outline and start to tell the story that I want to tell, which of course is how to be helpful, and help other people then think about tackling this project, this organizing project that I'm going to walk them through. So I think those are two different kinds of writing. Are you writing from experience and a well of information that you already have developed, or are you kind of starting from scratch?
Absolutely. I love the data mining idea. And that is, repurpose what you have as a starting base is such a great way to get started and to help you create that foundation. So Mahana, then what has been your process and how would that differ?
Yeah, it's amazing hearing Darla talk, because your process can change so much over the years. And so when I first started, my books always started with a central question or an idea. So I'd say, how does somebody fall in love, for example, when I started my romance series. And then since then, I've sort of really been able to formalize the process. For my novels, I use National Novel Writing Month every year. So that's every November. You write 1,600 words a day with a goal of 50,000 words by the end of the month. So that's a good organizing principle for my year, because that means from about May till about September, I'm just doing lots of research, because usually my books have either a major cultural element or a genre element. I started a crime series a couple of years ago, and so all I did for 6 months was read, watch, as many different versions of crime novels, and I watched True Detective, and I just tried to really like soak in the genre of crime to see how other people had treated it. And then in October, I outlined. So when I first started out, I didn't outline, and I definitely don't recommend that. Just because, on page 1, somebody would have red hair, and then by page 5, they'd be like a brunette. And on page 4, somebody's born, and then it was like a soap opera because by page 7, they were 32 and like frustrated with their lives. I mean, it was just all over the place. And then to try to go back and impose order on something like that is really, really difficult. So I'm a big proponent of outlining. And I just find it easier to keep track of stuff. I mean, we're all so busy now. We wear multiple hats. We do all these different things. So if you can have just a basic word file, even if it just says chapter 1, and what I do is I do 3 scenes per chapter for a draft. And then because I am doing NaNo, National Novel Writing Month, I know that I'm going for that 1,600 or so words. So I know I want 600 word scenes. So I kind of boil it down really, really to the brass tacks, because then when I'm sitting down to write, I know I have a 1-sentence summary of the 3 scenes in chapter 1. And then that really just allows me to just generate, those scenes. And then you can go back and fix lots of things and get feedback. And writing is obviously an iterative process. So for the next probably 8 months of the year, I'm revising and editing and shoving my manuscript in anyone's face who will say that they'll give me feedback. But that's pretty much the process that I've come to over probably like the last 8 or so years, and it's allowed me to write a book, a novel every year. So this is actually the first year in about 8 or 9 years that I haven't done NaNo, because I sort of felt like I was running the well dry and I needed to let it replenish.
Well, now I know why I totally failed at NaNo the last couple of years, because I didn't start until mid-November. And then tried to do all of it in 30 days, and it's a nightmare. I love that process. It makes perfect sense to spend a few months gathering your thoughts and ideas and outlining before you actually try and write 50,000 words in 1 month. So great advice on that one. Sarah, so you're still in the process. What are you doing? Anything differently or the same?
So I'm just starting out, so I probably haven't formulated a game plan as much as everyone else. But I did start with an outline, and then I've actually redone my outline probably a handful of times as the book gets more and more like niche down. And then I would just go in and kind of fill in the outline, like not write whole chapters, but kind of like summaries or paragraphs, and then go back more and more. So I've been kind of writing within the outline, if that makes any sense. And then right now I would say it's kind of it's beyond a skeleton outline. It's nearing rough draft stage. But I've been using Word and Evernote, and I'm finding that it's hard because you have to scroll all the way up and down, and it's just a pain. And so I'm probably going to get Scrivener. It looks complicated, but I know there are classes and stuff online to kind of teach you how to use it. And so I think that'll help, because I know you can like drag and drop and the little postcards and corkboard or whatever they call it.
Yeah.
So that's going to be my next step, is to go in through that so I can kind of get a better view of, because right now with the scrolling, it's almost like you forget what's in your next chapter or whatever, and if you need to reorganize, or it's just complicated. So I'm definitely going to do that.
Well, luckily for us, we actually have a professional organizer on this call. So I'm actually going to turn it over to Darla, and I would love to hear the ideas and suggestions that you have from the organizational standpoint.
Well, I love what everybody said. I think we, there's a million different ways to approach a writing project, but I do a little bit of some of the things that Mohana and Sarah said as well. One of the things, first of all, my last 2 books I completely wrote in Evernote. I am a huge fan of Evernote, primarily because it's really worked. I mean, it works, and it works cross-platform. It works wherever you are. And it's been one of the most reliable platforms for many, many years, where, we come to a conference like this and we learn about some tools. And if they've been out there 5 minutes, you just don't know if they're going to be around when you get to that point in your book, or there's always something new coming on board. That's great. But I need something that works cross-platform, that works no matter whether I'm here or in Europe or, wherever I might be. So cross-platform is really important to me. So I do kind of what Mohana said. While I am percolating my ideas, I use Evernote and as a specific notebook that I've set up for this project to just gather any sort of ideas. And Evernote's a great, I'm not here to sell it, but it is a great place just to stash ideas, right? Just to throw ideas right into that notebook. They can be clipped off the web. They can be a picture of literally a back of the envelope or a napkin that you've been sketching on. They can be something that you have researched fully. It can even be a voice memo. All of that stuff can be pushed into your notebook, and then it's just there waiting for you when you're ready to start developing your actual text. And then you can have another note inside that notebook that is just your outlet, the outline, the content outline. And then what I do is when I'm ready to create the actual text, I will start yet another note inside that same notebook that is, chapter 1. Or what I'm doing now, what I did on my last book is I got to a point I was having some issues with my hand because I was typing so much. And so I was using the mobile version of Evernote to just speak my content. And I was using a combination of Evernote and Zoom just to essentially lecture out what I wanted the content to be, and then Evernote effortlessly transposed my words into text in that note inside my notebook for the project. So everything's there. It's very easy to find. It's very flexible as far as what I'm looking at on any given day. I can look at something that's kind of on the top of the stack or the bottom of the stack as I'm looking at it. So those are some of my favorite tools. Evernote, it's free. I don't know any writer, who isn't using it, but if they're not, they really should look into it before they spend any money on any fancy writing tools, because these days you don't need a fancy writing tool to end up with a published work.
Yeah, I agree. I would say the key there, Sarah, is that if you're using Word or Google Docs or Evernote or any of those things, is that you don't put it all in one document. Like you have to separate it out, or even like Google Docs will allow you to use headings and then it'll create an outline for you, which is kind of nice. So if you're starting a different chapter, you can literally put chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and then it'll pull out the outline on the side so that you can click on that and go there. One of the things about Scrivener that is nice if you are looking to invest, and I'm telling you what, it's a big tool to learn. Like I've spent a lot of time trying to figure it out, but once you get some of the cool things down, it is nice that it allows for a very easy to organize and sort places where you can, for me, it's better for fiction than nonfiction, but I can see how nonfiction would use it too, because you can pull in the research, you can pull in the character development, you can create cork boards where you pin stuff up and do all these kinds of things. You can break it down. But, for me, the time that it took to learn how to do all of those things outweighed some of the benefits of doing it too.
I think, Alexa, that's exactly right. Like I just have to have a tool that is there And I'm cross-platform in a lot of different ways. So I have a PC.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I do most of my work in my office. I have a Mac. That's when I'm traveling or when I'm in bed at night. That's what I'm working on. And, you've already learned there's so much to learn, right? There's the platform that you're actually writing on. There's the learning that you're going to get out of a summit like this. There's all the publishing stuff to come later that you have to learn. So I keep my tool set very simple and very, very effective. Because number one, I don't want to have to spend, $100 here, $100 there, $5 a month, $15 a month on all these different tools. I mean, it really starts to add up. So I keep my tool set very, very simple so that I don't have to be whacking gremlins all day long.
Right.
I want to be writing. I don't want to be troubleshooting all the time.
Yeah.
I'll have to take another look at Evernote then, because I didn't realize it had some of those tools that you're talking about, like the transcription and whatnot. I know of like Rev and whatnot for that, but I didn't realize Evernote had that.
Yeah. So one of the things that my team and I do, you were asking about how to get organized, to write, and taking the time to plan what you're going to do, not only in the writing process but after the writing process. Is important too. So when I first start writing, we actually create an Excel spreadsheet, and you can do this again in a number of different ways in project management tools, but everybody pretty much has Excel. So if you have it, start there. And we actually schedule out when the book has to be written, when the book has to be edited, and then all of the publishing activities post writing. So, if you're a first-time author, it's very easy to say, oh, writing the book is hard. But guess what? Publishing the book is harder, and selling the book is a lot harder than either of those. So we schedule out what the next year looks like, and everything that you're hearing about on this summit, and everything that you read about, every tool that you read about, or every person that you want to connect with, they are plugged into our spreadsheet with a date. So it's a simple 3-column spreadsheet. What's the activity, what's the date we're going to start it, and then what are the notes, and what are the follow-up actions in that notes column. And so it's, again, a very simple tool set, but I sit down and say, okay, if we're going to have a book out in November, then here's what I have to do between now and then to get the book ready, and to talk to various researchers, to talk to various people who can help us get it out, to talk to various media, and we can see where the squeeze is going to be on the schedule. That is all part of writing these days. Even if you have a traditional publisher, you need to be aware of what that timeline looks like, and to be aware of all the things that you can be doing to help your publisher, or if you're like me, sort of self or hybrid published, then it's even more important to be aware of all of those could-dos and must-dos in the meantime.
That is such a good point. And we are going to hop over to Moana, because she was trying to say something before she got kicked out rudely of Zoom. But before we go on, I just want to say I have a free download of a timeline for anybody who's brand new, and eyes just got really big with what Darla just said. It was like, I have to do what when? If you click in the notes, you can grab my 180-day timeline, which, I mean, for anybody who's been through the book process more than once knows that you really need like a full year or longer, but we'll start you with the 180 and you can grow from there. All right, Moana.
Oh no, I was just going to say that I'm very old school. It probably comes from my, English literature background. I print things out, and I don't know how much space people have at home, but when I'm in the middle of a project, I mean, the whole wall will be papered with different things. So Sarah, when you're saying you're scrolling through the computer, that definitely would not work for me either, because I just don't have enough mental bandwidth to host all those things at the same time. And even though I'm a very much a text person, obviously being a writer, I also need to see visual representations of things. So sometimes what I do is I'll go to the library, or I'll go to, my office on campus. And if I can get in front of a really big whiteboard, and I think there's a lot of value in physically writing things out as well when you're trying, at whatever stage you're trying to get yourself organized. And whenever I get stuck, I go back to kind of visual representations as well, collages, all those kinds of things, mind maps. So there's a lot of value, obviously in computers, and they store lots of information, but I think it's been really helpful to get off the page often as well. And, away from the keyboard back into like the messy part of like physically writing things.
Moana, I'll add on to that. This is going to sound like a commercial for Evernote, but it's not. But really, I mean, I have to do that too. And early on, our spreadsheet was actually a big whiteboard, and the big Post-it notes, the ones I'm talking about that are on an easel. And so I had several of those, and that's kind of, where we outlined what was in our head. But then at the end of the day, you can't walk around with that whiteboard. You can't walk around with those big Post-it notes. So Evernote is a great place. You can take a picture of whatever that thought process was that you just physically had to create, and you can take that picture, and where are you going to put it? You can't, a lot of people would email it to themselves. That is so not helpful. That is so, non-productive, because then it ends up in your email, and that's a mess. But if you take the afternoon or the morning or whatever to create that visual mind map, or the timeline, or whatever your visual process is, or collage, and then you find yourself traveling, or like I have a physical office, but I'm doing a lot of my writing upstairs when I'm in bed. And so being able to take a picture of that physical process and save that so I can refer to it a month later, 6 months later, through Evernote is so, so very valuable to me.
I think you both raised really good points, and that is a lot of us that are writing and building businesses where we're not necessarily in one place all at the same time. Like, it's definitely helpful to have a place where you can store it. I work out of my home, and I spend 90% of my work time in my house. So something like what Mohana just described would work. And as you were talking about it, it reminded me of in my old life when I was doing counterterrorism planning, when we were getting ready to scope out a plan or an exercise or something, we would do, I can't believe I never thought about applying this to my writing, but we would do just what you were talking about. We would get out sticky notes and just grab a huge white space behind us and just start saying, okay, this is phase 1, this is phase 2, this is phase 3, this is what has to happen, here's all the things. And it really, really, there's something about the creative process where if you're feeling stuck, even if it's not what you use all the time, or if you just take a picture of it and put it aside, there's something about the creative process that really gets going with hand to paper and with visualization, which is why mind mapping is such an important process, or something similar to that snowflake process, whatever you want to do when you're starting to put together a book. So I really love that discussion, because it can show how different ways different minds work, different settings, different environments. Sarah, you told us you're working in a collaborative work environment, so it probably would not work for you to like take over the entire wall of the place. But maybe for one afternoon while you're just scoping it out, and then you can take a picture and take it down. But I do want to circle back to something that at least one of you, I know Mohana, said about the importance of an outline. And I know that a lot of people, and this is across genre, across the board. I write mostly nonfiction. I like to say I write fiction, but I have 4 fiction books that only have like 6 chapters each. So, but I can tell you that when I finally,
if you had an outline, Alexa, that you had some more chapters.
Yes, I keep telling myself that. My writing coach tells me that. She's like, you need to sit down and put together the outline, or you're never going to finish it. And what do? I just go start a new book.
Well, and the thing
don't follow my lead
about outlines is I don't outline the whole book. I only do the first 10 chapters. because, books they are kind of organic living things. So
Right.
I feel like it's interesting that you say you stop at chapter 6, because if you can get to that 10th chapter, it's like tracks on a railroad.
Yeah.
So, if you can get yourself out of the station, into the next state, then you've got somewhere to go. And then, so then I'll go back to those first 10 chapters and kind of, build it out there. And then I also use a 3-act structure. So in theater writing, there's, act 1, act 2, act 3, and obviously act 3 is the shortest and act 2 is the longest, but I aim to have 10 chapters in each act in the draft as a way of like, okay, I just want to get to a destination.
Right.
And actually the book that I'm working on right now, in this revision, I had to put it away for a year. So Sarah, that should tell you as well, that just, you can plan and everything, but sometimes some projects just take longer than others. And then I picked it back up and I was able to really work on the front end of it. And then around chapter 16, again, I was like, I can't, I'm stuck. And it's okay to be stuck. And I actually sent it to my writers group. And I think that's another great tool as well, because they can help you with deadlines. They can help you stay motivated to be part of a critique group, even if it's just one other person. So we're actually meeting tomorrow night. So I'm sort of nervous. And I said to them, read as much of this as you can. And what I really need help with is the tail end of it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think, you don't want to outline a thing to death, but you want it to be there to give you some, some structure, so that then when you go back, you can kind of see where the holes are.
Yeah.
I think finding those holes is really important. As a nonfiction writer, I can tell you that I have no problem. There's something very satisfying about having a content outline fully developed. And mine's only ever 1 page. It's not, it's not terrifying to completely outline 1 page. And I write short books on purpose because my audience will not read long books. They may want to, but they're all about short books and getting results right away. So outlining a book fully with chapters and subheadings, not a problem to do that in a short amount of time. But I can tell you the one thing as a nonfiction writer that I always do when I'm creating my outline and then as I'm developing the content is I always have in mind a client, and it's not always the same client for each part of the book, but I have a client in mind that I am literally talking to. Mm-hmm. And I am testing everything that I'm putting on the page against the interaction that I've had with that client in the past. So I'm really trying to make sure that I'm not putting out theory, that I am telling my current audience what my past audience has actually responded to or what they've had trouble with. And sometimes, it's not saying straight out, this is what you should do. It's saying, here's what people have done and it's worked out badly. And that belongs in the outline, that belongs in the content, but because it's happened in real life, I feel like, I'm like checking off, not only does the content fit in my outline, but does it actually hold water? Did it actually make sense in real life?
Yeah, that's a great strategy. Sarah, would you like to add anything to the discussion?
Well, I was going to talk about editing tools that I use.
Yeah, that'd be great. Let's do it.
I actually use both ProWritingAid and Grammarly, which maybe that's kind of redundant, but
I do too, but I am going to say ProWritingAid is a silver sponsor and we love their tool. Mm-hmm. I love it, love it, love it. I've used it on the last 3 books and it's amazing. Mm-hmm. Give them the shout out they deserved, but I use Grammarly too. I think, and there's, we did an interview with Lisa and she talks about the differences, and there is a big difference in the way that the tools are meant to be used. So, it's no problem to use both. Yeah.
So my plan is to use both of those and then go to an editor after that, so they don't have as much stuff that they need to correct and edit and whatnot. But
yeah, there's actually several AI types of editing tools, artificial intelligence tools out there. And when I was writing my last book, there were several sections that I ran through, not 1, not 2, but 3 editors. and not necessarily just for content, but sometimes just to simplify the language as much as I possibly could. I mean, I was trying to get down to like third grade writing.
Right.
And sometimes that's hard to do when you're close to the content or you've spent a lot of time on it. So, so I had heard somebody else recommend, don't stop at just one editor. And I didn't. I ran several sections through several editors and, kind of chose my best phrasing or caught errors or, phrasing discrepancies on one set that didn't come out in the other editor.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you have to remember with the artificial intelligence tools, they are not human, so they don't get colloquialisms. They don't get some things, and some of them don't use the Oxford comma, which drives me nuts. So it's always telling me to remove a comma, and I'm like, that comma's supposed to be there. Stop telling me to remove that comma. So
I think sadly the Oxford comma is going away.
No.
So,
Yeah.
No.
It really depends on your audience. Yes.
I personally don't like the comma. But
To each their own. I do not like change. I do not like change. It took me a long time to move from 2 spaces after a period to 1 space, and I finally got that down. And now they want me to take away a comma. This is just
So funny.
I'm just kidding. But no, it is great to have those, because the tools will probably be up to speed on what is happening. You would hope that they'd be up to speed. But okay, so we've talked about some editing tools. We've talked about some tools for laying out the content. What other tools do you like to use? Is there anything that we have not discussed that is something that you like when writing the book?
Well, there's a tool that Darla told me about the other day called BookBrush, and I checked it out, and it's pretty cool. It's kind of like Canva, but specifically for authors and creating designs.
I do know about this tool. We will check this out.
It's brand new. Beautiful.
Very cool. BookBrush. Very awesome. Mohana, you were trying to say something there.
Oh, I was just going to say for the, for people in the audience and even for Sarah, and things that I need reminding of all the time is, something really simple like versioning, how you're saving your files.
I totally agree with Mohana, and that may be something, that from a data and an organizing standpoint that we do very simply, and I do with my books as well. Versioning is so important. So when I get to a point in my book where I feel like I have some content, like if I hit the if I hit the wrong button and I would be sad that I had to start over, then I'm going to save it and save it with today's date. And I'll save it in a couple of different places. So I'll save it on Dropbox. I'll save it on my computer. I'll save it in Evernote. A lot of times I'll have to move chunks out of Evernote, work on them in Word, and then move them back into Evernote if that's where I'm doing most of my editing. So Mohana, you're back. It looks like I just wanted to say that was a great point. And we save our files with a file structure, with a file name. So it might be, organizing your home, or we'll call it SASH. So sort and succeed home, right? So we don't want to write that out all the time. So we've early on decided it's going to be SASH, and then, version 1 or as of January 2019. And then at some point I'll save another version, SASH, manuscript as of February, that sort of thing. So it's a little redundant, but there's no guessing, right? I'm always going to have an older version to go back to.
I cannot stress the importance of keeping track of your stuff. I once lost all the versions of a update based on a computer meltdown, and then I was never able to get file back, and then I had written to the editor and she hadn't saved it either. It was just I know. And this wasn't even my first book. This was,
this is just a great opportunity to say something like how important it is to set up yourself with a Dropbox account or something like that just an external place for an external hard drive wherever, because my computer crashed last summer and I had only been working on a book on the laptop and they could not recover the files.
Every writer who is dependent on, especially if it's an income for you, you should have 2 backups of everything, that whether you keep it on your computer or on Dropbox. One, you should have an on-site hard drive that is a backup of your computer hard drive. And the second is you really need to have Carbonite or Backblaze or one of the other services that's exactly like that. And that's an off-site backup. And trust me, I've had to use one when the other has broken down. You never want to have both of them broken down. And I'm so sorry that happened to you. It's happened to all of us. And the other thing that I'll say on that is once you finish a book, once you wrap it, take whatever final file that you have in Dropbox or your computer or wherever you have it and save it on another drive. It can be a USB drive. It can be, whatever. But just that information, that file, the cover art, any graphics, whatever the finished package is, put that on a USB, label it really well with a really big label. We use big shipping tags that are about this big. And put that in your file drawer so that you have that hard copy, right? On a USB too.
Well, and I mean, that's such a good point. I was so sad for a very long time. Luckily, I had bits and pieces of it from where I'd sent out to here and there or saved a version that was someplace else, but it was a long way back and I had to go back. But also on the versioning, so we talked about creating the book in Google Docs. Well, thankfully, I caught this before it happened, but I'm working with a client that she and her editor are working on the book in Google Docs. And I said, are you saving it at different versions? So your editor's not just going in there and making comments, and then you're not just going in there and writing right over those comments. I was like, every time you go through a revision, you need to save it as a start over from there, because, what happens if your editor, if somebody takes out something that was truly key to the, and you have to go back to another version. And I know sometimes you can go back, but it's not for sure. So save them as separate. Every time your editor goes in there, have them save it as a new version. It's better to have 8,000 versions than miss out on what you really need.
Amen, sister. Yep.
I also email myself the latest version. I don't know if that's
I do that too. Especially after the laptop crash.
It can't hurt.
I have a hard drive. I have dropped. Go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, it can't hurt. I mean, electronic space, you could always pay for extra storage. I have mirrors of my hard drive in different online storage places. So, and then obviously, like Darla was saying, keep it simple, the naming system, so that you can figure out, what it is that you're looking for. Like when I'm working on Nano, I just usually whatever the working title is for the project and the number of words is how I save the files. And then that's kind of incentive too, because then I see, okay, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000. Okay,
that's
I'm almost
great idea.
Yeah.
Every time I get in there.
I like that. Yeah.
So,
nice.
I like using the date or the version, because I sometimes get confused on version numbers, but I like using the date because then it's really clear. If it's saved, August 1st and then August 10th and August 12th, you can tell where that is. But obviously lots of different ways to do this depending on what works best for you. Just realize we're not telling you how you have to do something, just what are good ideas and suggestions for them. So,
but I'm glad you brought up the backup, because that's something basic that I always think, oh, everybody's backing up, but you get so involved in your project and you're like, what won't happen to me, it's fine. And then the inevitable happens later. And, it's heartbreak. So
yes, absolutely. Backups are so important for writers. All right, ladies. Well, we have covered a lot of ground, and this has been really useful information. I just want to give everybody the opportunity. We'll go Darla, Sarah, and Mohana with the opportunity to share any final thoughts or tips or final advice that we haven't yet covered on this topic.
There's a couple of specialty tools that I go to. There's one called capitalizemytitle.com There's one that's similar that's on liveWriteThrive.com, liveWriteThrive.com, I guess it is, but it's a hyphenation chart, because I'm always getting confused on hyphenations and, which should be capitalized, what shouldn't. I follow the Chicago Manual of Style, and, I try and stick to that style guide. But those are all tools that are online, Chicago Manual of Style or MLA or whatever you're going to use. And then there's another one that's similar. It's called Easy Bib. Again, you should give credit where credit is due, and those things change. How you keep, your bibliography and how you properly attribute, especially things online. That's changing all the time. So those are some tools that I just go to as I'm finishing up a book usually, and triple check.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thank you. Those are great resources. Sarah?
Let's see. Ones that I would recommend, like if you're publishing through KDP or Kindle or Amazon, would be Publisher Rocket, formerly KDP Rocket, which helps with keywords, categories. There's other ones that are similar, like KD Spy. So those for that purpose. But then also when you're getting ready to send out advanced reader copies, to use BookFunnel.
I love BookFunnel.
Yeah, that one. I haven't used it yet because I don't have my final product yet, but I'm planning on using that. So let's see. And then also, this isn't really, I guess, an organizational tool, but for education on this topic, there's like 4 main resources that I go to. And that would be the Creative Pen, which is Joanna Penn, Kindlepreneur, and that's Dave Chesson. He's the one who did KDP Rocket. Let's see, The Book Designer, which I believe is Joel Friedlander, and then Creative Indie, Derek Murphy. All 4 of those I found, like their blog posts, podcasts, whatever, to be very helpful as far as learning just the whole self-publishing process and tools and distribution, just everything you could possibly need to know.
Yeah, those are great sites. Joanna Penn has been a very, very big mentor and guide to me in all of my publishing stuff. So
one thing I would say is, especially to people who are starting out, or maybe they feel that they've kind of stalled in their writing somewhere, is to just keep going and to really kind of do it your way, do the research, obviously coming to the summit and, learning and getting the all access pass so you can use the material, year round is great. And feeling no pressure to do it any way that anyone else does. Like a lot of the people that you both mentioned love to use Scrivener. I've never used Scrivener, and I still manage to write books. So I think it's very personal, and it has to work for you. If you get into all of these software and you can't manage, like Darla was saying, you can't keep the software organized, and it's not actually doing you any favors. So I would really encourage people to kind of find a system that works for them, because where we are right now in publishing is that, everyone's always focused on their first book, but if you only write one book, then, you're more of a writer, not an author. So authors, have a body of work and they continue producing work. And that's really kind of where readers want to be right now with books that they're reading. So I would encourage people to think about what's going to work for them in the long haul. What can they sustain? What comes natural? What's going to make writing faster? Not necessarily thinking about adding bells and whistles that may or may not be useful. Because you can get, organizing is like a whole thing in and of itself. And you can say like, oh, I organized all my files today. And then how many words did I write? 0. But my folders on my hard drive look amazing. Yeah. So kind of keeping it in perspective, I think is good if you can.
I love that point, and that's such a good way to wrap this all up. One, covering the fact that you don't have to do what somebody else does, do what works for you. But 2, this idea that you really can start with very simple tools get your first book written. And then if you decide to keep on writing and you realize that you had shortfalls or issues or tools that you wished were better, you can start investing at that point in time. But it's so easy to fall down that rabbit hole where now you're spending all your time learning how to put things in Scrivener instead of actually writing your book. So that's such a great point. Write one, decide if you want to invest in tools and in learning how to use them, and then go on from there. Ladies, this has been a very great panel. It's covered stuff that we did not talk about anywhere else or anything else. So this is really, 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 how many times can I say really in one sentence? I'm getting tired.
A few more. Yeah.
Yes, I greatly appreciate your insight and your information, your willingness to come and share with the audience what you've learned, because I know it's, as I think it was Darla said at the beginning, she wished she'd had something like this when she started her first book, or maybe that was Mohana.
That was Mohana, but I completely agree.
Exactly. And yes, so if you have any questions for any of these women about their style, about how they've done it, obviously we have very different genres covered here. Please feel free to reach out and connect with them. I know that they will love to write back.
And Alexa, you're wrapping up here, and I want to make sure that folks remember that there are offers. There's a ton of offers in the entire All Access package, and I would encourage folks to look at that. But I did, because I know organization is a struggle for writers, and a lot of times people will sit down to write, and their desk or where they want to be writing is such a wreck that they don't progress much past that, and the word count stays low. And so what I did is I put this first time I'm doing it, probably the last, but I love you so much, Alexa, that I wanted to offer up a free organizing class on how to manage paper. So it's an online class. You can take it whenever, very similar to how this is going down here at the Women in Publishing Summit. But it's a full online class on how to organize your paper so that you can get out of your paper piles and start writing probably on the computer, which is how most of us write these days. So I hope people will take advantage of that.
That's amazing. Thank you. And I love it when the speakers pitch the All Access Pass, so I don't have to sell as hard. But it really is about getting the tools that you need to help you, being able to revisit these videos and listen over and over again, because you're getting thrown a lot of content in a very short amount of time, and it's just going to bounce right off of you at some point in time. So being able to re-listen, rewatch, download, listen to the audio, but also, as Darla mentioned, the bonuses from the speakers and the extra information that we are providing in there, in addition to the community. That'll be a year-long event, not just for this week and then we're done. So we appreciate you very much. Thank you to my speakers on this. This has been a great, great, great interview. And there I go with the great. I just need to stop talking. So have a wonderful afternoon.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.